So within a business arena, if we're always saying this is what as a business we need to achieve, then we've already formed ourselves a limit.
Hello Sales Nation and welcome to the Salesman Podcast Live in partnership with HubSpot and recorded at the Sales Innovation Expo down in London. On today's show we have Pip Thomas. She is an NLP expert and she leverages that to share with us how we can sell to our fullest potential. You can find out more about Pip over at edgenlp.co.uk. We'll link to that and everything else that we talk about in the show notes of this episode over at salesmanpodcast.com. And with all that said, let's jump in to today's show. Pip, welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on. I'm excited to dive into today's topic because we could go multiple directions with this.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be relevancy both for improving our sales skill and hitting targets and all that good stuff.
Sure.
But I think this is a bigger picture and a wider conversation than that as well. So let me start by asking you, if we're going to talk about selling to our fullest potential, how do we know as a benchmark perhaps what our fullest potential actually is?
So there's a big question in itself. So the interesting thing is actually turning that question on its head and thinking about identifying what has limited us from achieving our full potential. We tend to do work in a way that we've always worked. Yeah, it's familiar for us. We're really busy living our lives. And so we work in a manner that deliver end results that are familiar to us. Often, those end results will be challenged or will be channeled based on what's being asked of us by our employee, what's going on in our mind, what our internal dialogue might be happening that day, which will impact what our full potential might be. So being able to identify that as your biggest challenge to start with and modify that and change the way we might think and feel about what we're doing and how we're doing it opens up our full potential. Our full potential then becomes something that feels right to us, that sense of congruence. And that could be that we're carrying on continuously, going for more, I want more, I'm enjoying this. It's aligned with your values, it's aligned with how you want to be perceived and be behaving in the industry, but also on a personal level. And once you've got all those things lined up, your full potential is wherever you want to take it. I mean, just look at some of the high achievers in the world. I don't think they cap it.
And is that something that we do? Do we cap our potential? And I can give you an example of this. Okay. When I first started with the podcast, my kind of like stretch goal was 1 million downloads a month. And I was like, whoa, if we get to anywhere near that, we'll one, be having an impact. And two, there'll be revenue, there'll be financial success that will come along with it. And my focus has always been impact first and knowing that if you can change enough people and influence and help enough people, all the good stuff comes along with it. Now, kind of 18 months in, we're at 500,000 downloads a month, and we're probably going to hit that 1 million mark in the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm having set that limit. I feel like I'm going to get there, and then I'm going to go, what's next? Is this a common theme, especially for salespeople, in that they go, right, my target is $1 million.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to aim for.
Yeah, and it kind of, that whole conversation there sits really well with the conversation we were having before we started this podcast, which was all around actually what targets do we set and who sets them. So within a business arena, if we're always saying this is what as a business we need to achieve, then we've already formed ourselves a limit. Yeah. So even some of the best companies in the world who kind of go, and this is the size of business we want to get to, when they get there, now what do we do? Okay, so what do we do? Well, the fact of the matter is actually there's enough business and opportunity out there dependent on what your customer base is asking for. Sometimes we drive it the wrong way around. Yeah.
And
so
is that a fact or is that a belief that we've got to have?
It's a fact. Yeah, it's a fact. And it's wrapped around though with a belief. So if I go out into the world, great wide world, and go, there is an inordinate supply of people who would really benefit from finding out more about how they function, how they work, really being able to engage with their natural resources and abilities, and that will carry on forever. Life is good. If I kind of go, do you know what, I'd like to land another 150 people by the end of whatever it might be, then I'm limiting myself already. And what you do at an unconscious level is not actually stretch past it. You're already telling yourself that's enough. Yeah. And it's about going, well, what is enough? And that's a slightly different subject also, in the sense of, and this is why it comes back to, I started off saying what's aligned to your values. What is it that for you means, and I say for you as in the individual, what is it that defines success? How do they know?
So this is a conversation. This is slightly different to what I was expecting, but this is for salespeople specifically. I think is super interesting. Of how do we know what success is for us? And I'm not expecting you to tell us.
No.
But how can we uncover this? Because this seems to be the central point of it all.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And so what is it? What does it need to be? So I would simply be asking myself, how will I know that I've got the level of success that I'm looking for? What will I see? What will be around me? What will I be hearing? So what will I hear other people say about me? And what will be my internal dialogue? Okay, how does that influence what's going on? How will I be feeling? That level of congruence again. And I'll be seeking the evidence that determines for me that I would say, I'm happy, I'm successful, I've reached that level that I've been aspiring to. Now, for a sales individual, that'll be born about by achieving their targets, excelling their targets, setting something more than that. And if it is only monetary driven, they can do that and still might have something missing. So what is it that sits beyond that? And that's the key element of it. And it's asking you that question. If you take time out, shut yourself into a darkened room and just listen to the conversation that takes place in your head, what evidence do you have that you've achieved what you're looking for?
So I want to double down on this because I don't think we should gloss over it. I think this is super important for the audience because a lot of the audience, especially any younger salespeople or anyone that has got into it purely for the money, is thinking, I'll be successful when I get that Porsche.
Yeah.
And, that could be right for some people. I imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, that's probably not the real reason that we're going to feel successful at the end of the day for 99% of the audience. But clearly it could be useful for some of them. So you kind of described them, but you said it almost flippantly of we sit in a dark room and we listen to ourselves and we listen to this voice. Is that literally the process that we need to go to?
So the process will depend on the individual, but in essence, we spend the vast majority of the time in our conscious mind, consciously aware of what we're doing, how we want to do it, and the timescales we've got to do this. And hence why when a company gives you a target, you're consciously aware of it and focusing on it.
Yeah.
At an unconscious level, all our drivers sit there, what we really want out of life. But when do we get the opportunity to acknowledge that? Yeah. So let me give you an example. Yeah. I recently worked with two sales directors, and actually one's a sales director, one's sales and marketing director. Same company, slightly different roles within that sales funnel. And the first question I said to them is, well, how will you know? What's your evidence that you're successful? One of them instantly said, well, I've been looking for a yacht, and when I have that yacht and I've got my Ferrari and I've got, I know I've achieved all I wish to achieve. Okay, cool. Ask the other guy, what about you? He said, freedom. That was it, freedom. Okay, so what does freedom look like to you? Being able to know that I have security for my family, my friends, that I can give back into industry, that I can do charitable work, that I can flex and flow as I want to. Two very different measurements of how successful they've been. Asking them again, so how long have you known this to be the case? The guy who said freedom is has been on quite a spiritual journey for him. Really self-aware, got a massive amount of self-awareness, and just knows what makes him feel right and feel good. And the other one, it's very much driven by what he perceives other people will view him as.
And is that, I don't know if there's a right or wrong here, but again, there's a lot of salespeople listening who want the Porsche. If they're doing well, they want the yacht, of course. And that's probably that's beyond my that's my limited belief.
The yacht would work for me.
Yeah, but that is clearly you're basing your success on the thoughts and opinions on others, which you can't control. Is that? Would you say to him that's fine, that's okay, or do you try and get him then to drill down another level and suss out what success is underneath that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things with that. So there's no wrong or right in this. It's what's relevant to that person at that moment in time. Okay, and that's really key. So if the yacht is what someone wants, good for them. If the other one is able to connect completely with what freedom means to them, good for them. What I would do, instead of drilling down though from the one who has the tangible bits, I'd be actually wanting to go up to the highest intention that sits behind it. So you've got the yacht, you've got the Ferrari, you've got the fabulous lifestyle. What will all that get for you? What will it bring you a sense of? And you're looking for almost understanding, and it aligns very well with the whole sales process. What's your why? So bring it down into a product. Why? What's the why that someone's going to buy or invest in your product? What's your why for doing what you're doing right now? When do you know that you're fulfilling your purpose? Might sound very grandiose, but once you've got an understanding of what that might be, you'll bring it all the way back down to, in your role, energetically, you're going to address that role and deliver against it at a far, far higher level. Your ability to succeed is going to be much, much greater.
Let's turn this on its head slightly, because I see an opportunity here of when you're sat next to or opposite a procurement officer, you're selling to them. What happens when you say to them, why do you want this product? Or because you're trying to uncover their whys, and you drill down, you get to something, but they've got a limiting belief that would stop them purchasing your product. For example, your product it would require them to up their skill sets to be able to use it. Or the classic example of we've never had the budget for this project or something like that. Is there a way to help them? Because this is an opportunity. I'm sure you could sit there and go through all this, and they'd walk away and be like, wow, we'll buy anything from Pip because she can add all this extra value on top of the product and the process. But for us salespeople listening now, is there any way we can, without it turning into a therapy session and getting a bit weird, is there any way to kind of knock one of the legs away from these limiting beliefs to allow them to at least entertain it? Yeah,
of course there is. So so one of the challenges I often get when I'm talking to people is they might say, well, let's look at the budget. Let's use budget as an example. That seems really expensive to me. Okay, in comparison to what? In comparison to, and how will you know that what you're getting is going to be worth the money you're investing? What will you need to see? How will you know this is going to be the right product for you? How you know the service? What evidence do you need for you to know that you're investing in the right product, service, whatever it might be? And you just define it a little bit more. And if you had those things, what would that have to look like? So what I'm looking for all the way through is to be able to identify what the need is behind it. What is it that they're missing that they haven't yet identified, that they haven't got available? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And once we get to that level, then suddenly we're working at someone. It's a little bit like, we buy from, our buying strategy is an emotional strategy. Yeah, there's logic that sits there, but the final decision making element is going to be emotionally driven. So let's understand what the emotional hook might be, and fill that, and give it a pull, work around that element of it.
So is this an iterative process of we try and knock a belief, and then we give it a bit of evidence to rebuild a belief that's different? Does that make sense? Are we constantly iterating on this idea of you can't do this, why? Here's some evidence that you can. You still can't do this, why? And then you keep doing this until you get a breakthrough.
Yeah, or you just change it slightly. So you can't do this, and what would happen if you could?
Is this? Because I'm looking up as I'm saying this, and so I'm probably visualizing it in my mind.
You are indeed.
Are we trying to get them to visualize the best outcome, and then that makes it real to them? Is that what we're going for?
What you're looking to do is get the person to connect to it at every level. Okay, if they can connect to it at every level, then they're going to buy into it way more. But it has to be congruent for them. It's got to be aligned to what they're looking to achieve. Otherwise, you end up with buyer's remorse, whatever it might be.
You're a con man at that point.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is helping them create an environment where they can perceive it to be true. Where it could work in their environment. It could be right for their business, whatever it might be.
When you say allow it to work in their environment, do you mean physically we're painting a picture of, if it was here in your company, you could do this, this, and this? Are we trying to make it real for them, or are we trying to have a higher level less contextual conversation?
Sorry, a bit of both. So you want it to be contextual because they've got to be able to see that it's tangible. And then the other elements of it is also allowing them to see it from a greater level as well. So how might this influence the strategy of the business or organization going forward at a top line perspective, and actually on a day-to-day basis, how's this going to really add value to everyone in the environment, within the business? for instance. So there's two different ways of looking at it. My initial approach would want to be always help whoever it might be able to identify what they're going to get from it. So if you could have this, and it was the right price, and it did deliver the services you're looking for, what would that get for you? And how will you know that people are engaged in your organisation? Let's drill down a little bit. What's the evidence? Is it profitability? Is it motivation? Is it the general chit-chat around the coffee machine? What is it that's going to resonate for you, so you kind of go, that was a really good buying decision?
So I think we'll wrap up this, Pip, of you're almost going in and doing a lot of their work for them, right? Of they have entertained a sales meeting, or however you want to define the meeting, and you've gone in, and again, if you're congruent, or if you're confident that your product or service is truly going to help them, because you're just lying to someone otherwise if you go through these processes, you're doing a lot of the analytical work for them, which is it's almost like the art and the science of it. Obviously, clearly there's science behind all of this, but the art is getting them to understand it, put it into practice, and perhaps getting your belief a little bit to rub off on them, right?
Yeah, as long as that is ethical.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
So as long as, that's what I'm saying, as long as the product, the features and benefits fit in with them, your next job is to influence them to at least visualize it, and then they can make a decision on it.
Yeah, you're making it real for them.
Yeah.
You're allowing them to be able to visualize how it might actually truly be. So they can see it's right here, right now. It's not something that might happen. This is here. What's it going to bring to us in our environment?
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I've got one question, Pip, that I ask everyone that comes on the show.
Okay.
And that is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give her to help her become better at selling?
To appreciate that you can be there's many more ways of doing something than the one way you might have done it till now. Flexibility of behavior. There's a great equation. Behavior plus situation equals outcome. If you don't get the outcome you want, you can't change the situation. You can only be flexible in your behavior. It won't necessarily give you a better outcome, but it'll give you a different outcome. It's choice.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. A different outcome isn't necessarily a better one, but it's choice. It gives you pivotability, doesn't it?
Totally.
For sure. Well, for everyone, Pip, who is riveted by this and is super excited about increasing their potential and then kind of leveraging this to have better conversations and communicate better with their customers as well, tell us where we can find out more about you and everything that you do.
What do I do? All right, so I run a business called Edge NLP. We're a specialist NLP, neuro-linguistic programming organization. We work very much within the business arena, primarily within the technology arena, retail, and a couple of other sectors, but they're the key areas. We provide open courses, because it's a recognized qualification, and it's recognized a lot by recruiters now, as well as within senior management teams of large businesses. And we also provide and design training programs specifically for organizations, very tailored to their needs. Because we're looking at language, it's all about the internal and external dialogue. We work very much with the tone of voice of that company in order for them to have a team of people who really can be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. Well, we'll link to that in the show notes to this episode over at salesmanpodcast.com. Well, Pip, I want to thank you for your time joining us on the show.
You're very welcome.